Jabroni asks, is Lauri Markkanen the next Kevin Durant? Bradley, your ass, will Lauri Markkanen be an all-star? I put him on my all-star. Is he the next Kevin Durant? Yes, obviously. That. There's no question about that. I put him on my all-star team last time. Did you have him on your all-star team?
He was my most painful snub.
Would you? And it came down to Paul George or Lauri Markkanen. Now, I just want to make my case. Lauri Markkanen this season is averaging 23.1 points, 8.2 boards, 2.1 assists, shooting 61.2% on twos and 43.2% on threes, which he's taking at a clip of nearly 7 per game. There are two players, or there's only actually one of them is Lauri Markkanen. There's one other player for an entire season who has averaged 23 points while hitting 60% of his twos and 40% of his threes. Would you even care to venture a guess as to
No,
who
you're going to have to tell me.
It's motherfucking 2012, 2013 LeBron freaking James.
Sure.
That
so he's Kevin Durant and LeBron James. He's both.
Yeah, that's my point. So that has no bearing on this season, obviously, because the game has changed. This is still remarkable what he's doing. And I think just because when you start to look at the minutes disparities now, and the last time I checked, he had a few hundred minutes on Paul George, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe that has changed.
300 plus.
Right. If that's what it's coming down, like I know that we're supposed to reward ability over availability, but when you have this ability with that playing time, what he's done on offense. Oh, by the way, like he is sometimes or oftentimes being used as a hashtag wing. This is not someone who's just like a pure 4 anymore. Like he's operated like a wing on offense. He's had to defend at times like a wing on defense. I think he will be an all-star, and I think he's a deserving all-star. Now, will he get the bump because the game's in Utah and people will deliberate that? As of right now, December 27th at 2:42 p.m. Eastern time, Lauri Markkanen is an all-star. And I'm saying that not as the empty-handed tweets that I myself have sent out, where I think I called De'Aaron Fox an all-NBA player earlier this year, and you just don't name who they're going to beat out. I will point out, because I already did, so go back and listen to that podcast, who Lauri Markkanen belongs on the all-star team over for the West all-stars, even though the way the teams are drafted now changes where he could be. So yes, a resounding yes, 10 times over yes. Lauri Markkanen is currently an all-star.
You swayed me. I think it's that the difference between Markkanen and George in some of the catch-alls have flipped, and Markkanen's ahead of him in EPM, for example, and he's closer in Raptor. I based most of my argument for George over him on the idea that George's role is just harder and like more meaningful as a playmaker, high-end defender, just has to do a bunch of different stuff for the Clippers. But I think in addition to the numbers you laid out, which are like, that's compelling. I think I heard another good argument that like when you're picking all-stars, you're also kind of trying to make your selections on the basis of, if you're telling the story of this season, like who sort of features in it. And Markkanen being like a breakout star for a Jazz team for whom he's the best player by a lot and is the biggest reason that the Jazz are not like leading the tankathon. Like that's the big story for this season. We talked a ton about the Jazz, especially earlier. So that's a factor. The numbers are a factor. I gotta go Markkanen now over Paul George. You've done it.
Also, to your point about Paul George though, and there is this is just one number that illustrates it. Paul George, 56.8% of his 3-pointers have been assisted. Markkanen, that number is like 91% of his 3-pointers. Yeah. There's definitely a case to be made there, but I'm just going to ride the coattails of what you were talking about with the story of this season, and that's what Lauri Markkanen has done for the Jazz, who were supposed to, they didn't make sense on paper, but they never were going to be god-awful. The assumption was, and I said on this podcast, I reassured Jazz fans who were worried this wouldn't happen, and I was clearly wrong. The Jazz would not let themselves get even remotely close to a point like this. They have. I'm enjoying it. I think fans should enjoy it. They have enough picks in the asset clip, and the Timberwolves look like they're dog shit anyway. Feel pretty good about this season and enjoy the Lauri Markkanen. You traded away 2 all-stars and still ended up with an all-star at the 2023 All-Star game.